Resonance. The First Pact's Heart. Chapter 4.
The pressure came first, a dull war against the glass. Zoe barely had time to turn her head before something solid slammed her forward, knocking the air from her lungs. Her forehead struck the window pane and a white flash burst across her vision. The nocturnal reflection of base Prometheus, distant lights floating over the blackness of crossroads, shattered into warped, broken lines. A large, rough hand clamped around her wrists, pinning and tight against her own chest. Another slapped over her mouth, hard and insistent, heavy enough to make one thing unmistakably clear. This was no mistake, no confusion. The smell hit her instantly. Rancid sweat, metal, something chemical that burned her nose. Drugs. Not a sound. A low voice whispered far too close to her ear. Not one. Panic surged like a rising tide. The communicator was still vibrating on the bed, half muted, the eye hospital call that had just ended echoing in her head like a cursed refrain. The image of her mother, lost behind white walls and rigid schedules, collided with the pressure of the body behind her. Everything collapsed into a single suffocating point. Walter Ruiz. The name didn't arrive as a thought, but as cold data. Automatic, the kind of information filed away without emotion. Private, shaved head, just another sour face on one of the armored transport seats. Mocking disdain, condescension, lingering looks in the mess hall that Zoe had always brushed off with nervous jokes and quick exits. The hand over her mouth tightened. "Your little boyfriend Ward isn't here to save you," he went on, a low laugh vibrating against her neck. "And damn me if I ever let that filthy mountain hick tell me what to do again. So you'd better cooperate, you fucking sow." The glass was cold. Zoe felt her breath crash uselessly against the palm sealing her mouth, every attempt to inhale turning shorter, clumsier. Her heart hammered wildly, chaotic, as if trying to find its own way out. She thought of screaming. She thought of biting. She thought of nothing. The hand left her mouth. The knife came next, pressing against the skin beneath her jaw. It didn't cut, but the threat was unmistakable. The blade alone was enough to force her thoughts into a single, orderly line. You move, you scream, you do anything stupid. Ruiz tilted the knife just a fraction closer, and it's over. The terror was real, complete, animal. And then, almost without permission, something shifted. Maybe it was the way he adjusted himself, confident. Maybe the erratic way he breathed, too fast, too loud. Or the pressure that loosened for the briefest instant when he pulled his hand away to say something else, something unnecessary. Zoe inhaled sharply. The air came in ragged bursts, but it came. Her mind, trained for years to solve problems under pressure, began to work. Not heroically, calculating. Ruiz was taller, heavier. He had the strength advantage and a weapon. But he was clumsy. His movements lacked rhythm. The knife trembled just enough to betray faulty coordination. The drug didn't make him invincible. It made him slow. And he was too close. When he dropped his gaze, when his body shifted just enough to free one hand and reach for the zipper of his pants, Zoe stopped thinking. She acted. The knee strike was brutal and precise, driving upward with all her weight focused into a single vulnerable point between his legs. There was no elegance, no pause, only impact, and the pain that followed. Ruiz let out a guttural sound, half scream, half disbelief. His grip broke, and the knife clattered to the floor with a brief metallic ring that Zoe registered without looking. She didn't give him time to recover. Training took over. Elbows, fast and tight, targeting soft tissue. Another knee, this time lateral, throwing him off balance. Zoe stayed close, nearly pressed against him, denying him the space to use his size. Every strike was a simple decision. In, hit, out. You really thought this was going to work? She spat between blows. Really? Christ, you turned out to be even stupider than you look. Ruiz tried to grab her. Missed. His balance was a broken promise. Zoe pivoted, used his own weight against him, and drove him down. The impact was messy, limbs colliding, air forced violently from his lungs. She didn't stop until she was sure he wasn't getting back up right away. "You know what the worst part is?" she hissed between ragged breaths, her voice shaking but steady. "I honestly thought today couldn't get any worse." She backed away then, quick steps, her pulse still raging. Her hands trembled, but her vision was clear. She spotted the desk, the drawer, the exact place where she always kept her service pistol when she slept. She drew it in one smooth automatic motion. Learned. Repeated. When Ruiz managed to push himself upright, it was with difficulty. Blood streamed from his nose. One eye was already swelling shut. The fury, however, was still there. He froze when he saw the gun. Zoe aimed with both hands, set her stance, aligned the sights. The silence between them was absolute, heavy, as if the room itself were holding its breath. "One more step," she said with a calm she didn't recognize as her own, "and you're done. I don't care how much shit you took to feel this brave, you idiot." Ruiz blinked. The chaos in his eyes began to settle very slowly. And for the first time since the night had begun, Zoe felt control return to her hands. Zoe did not lower the weapon at any point. She held it steady with both hands, arms extended but without unnecessary rigidity. It was a recently issued Terran service pistol, an Aegis M7, dark polymer frame, angular lines, compact profile designed for close quarters combat. The short barrel housed an integrated compensator, and beneath it, a tactical light module that was currently off. Along the side, a thin, luminous strip indicated the weapon was active and ready to fire. It was not flashy, nor did it try to be. It was functional, quiet, and lethal in trained hands. Zoe was aware of every one of those details as she kept the sights centered on Ruiz's chest. "Let me see if I've got this straight," she began, in that tone of hers that always sounded conversational, even when the situation screamed otherwise. "You really thought this would work? Breaking into a superior officer's room in the middle of the night, here, on a floating military base packed with cameras, sensors, and armed insomniacs?" Ruiz tried to answer, but the effort died halfway. He coughed, spat something dark onto the floor, and fumbled a hand to his mouth, clumsily probing where teeth had been moments before. His legs trembled. Whatever chemical rush had driven him this far was draining away, leaving the full weight of reality behind. "Go to hell," he finally managed, slurring the words. Zoe tilted her head slightly, never shifting the aim. "You don't get to send me there, idiot. We're already here. Or what do you think this cursed planet is? Because it sure as hell isn't a resort." Silence fell again. Ruiz breathed raggedly, shoulders slumped, pride in tatters. Zoe took one step forward. "On the floor, now, hands on your head." She didn't shout. She didn't need to. Ruiz hesitated for a second, but the gun kept pointing at him with merciless calm. He obeyed, awkwardly, dropping to his knees before placing his hands where she indicated. His breathing turned harsh, humiliating. "Good," Zoe said. "Look on the bright side. You just earned yourself a ticket home." He lifted his head slightly, confused. "The only question is how," she continued almost cheerfully. "Medical discharge or dishonorable discharge with a cozy stay in a military prison? Assaulting a superior officer doesn't usually look great on a service record." She took another step, maintaining just the right distance. The weapon didn't waver. "I'm giving you an option. I only want one name. Who's selling you the garbage you're putting in your system? Who's been turning the troops in here into idiots?" Ruiz let out a broken laugh. more cough than mockery. "Turn me over to the MPs. End this. You're crazy." The word landed heavy in the air. Zoe felt something tighten inside her, not instantly, slowly, deeply, like an old wound pressed without care. An image cut through her mind uninvited. White corridors, lights too clean, a familiar voice repeating her name in fear. "How the hell did you call me?" she murmured at first. Then her voice rose. "How the hell did you call me, you animal?" The blow landed before Ruiz could react. The butt of the pistol struck him in a short, precise motion. Not to kill, to dominate. Zoe lost count of how many times she drove him back into the floor. She heard pleading, sobbing, words that never quite formed. She didn't care. Fury coursed through her like poorly grounded electricity, fed by weeks of tension, sleepless nights, by a phone call that still burned in her ears. When she finally stopped, her breathing was heavy, chest rising and falling fast. Ruiz no longer argued. He barely lifted his head. "All right," he babbled. "All right. Jackson O'Hare, contractor, Black Anvil. He comes around a lot, brings stuff. I don't know anything else." The name settled into her mind with uncomfortable clarity. Zoe closed her eyes for a single second. When she opened them, her voice was under control again. "I should have guessed. Black Anvil rats sticking their noses wherever there's money to be made, as subtle as ever." She half-holstered the pistol without fully letting go and gestured toward the door. "Get up. We're going for a walk." She marched him into the corridor, shoving him just enough to keep him moving. Prometheus's night lighting was low and bluish, designed not to disturb rest cycles. Zoe marched upright, alert to every corner. "Keep your mouth shut," she warned. "If anyone hears you, this ends right here." Ruiz swallowed. "You're really going to let me go?" he asked, clinging to a clumsy hope. Zoe smiled without humor. "I keep my word. Most likely they'll ship you home for the injuries." They stopped at the edge of the stairwell leading to the lower level, a dark shaft barely lit by safety beacons. "We just need to make it look like a believable accident." The kick was fast, straight to his back. Ruiz didn't have time to understand. He went down hard, tumbling down the steps until he lay motionless on the lower landing. The noise faded quickly, swallowed by the base's structure. Zoe watched for a moment longer. Walter Ruiz's body remained still, twisted unnaturally across the landing, no sign of movement. "Oops," she murmured. Then she turned around, returned to her room, and closed the door carefully. She placed the weapon back where it belonged, sat on the bed, and let out a long breath. "What a long day," she said to the empty room. And for the first time since it had all begun, she allowed the silence to wrap around her. Dawn arrived without spectacle. It came as a timid brightness, seeping through worn canvas and taut cords, a gray-blue light that barely outlined shapes inside the small tent. Kalen, the wanderer, opened his eyes slowly, as if his body refused to fully obey him. Every breath reminded him of the fatigue he carried. His muscles protested, stiff and aching, and a dull stab crossed his side when he tried to sit up. It was not just exhaustion. There was something else, a different pressure, a pulse that did not belong to physical pain. Kalen remained still, listening, not to the camp, still half asleep, but to what made no sound at all. The veil. The dissonance struck his chest like a blunt blow. It was not subtle, not a distant vibration or a passing interference. It was broad, deep, poorly contained, a recent tear, still warm, twisting in on itself. "No," he murmured, only realizing he had spoken after the word left him. He forced himself to move. Sitting upright took deliberate effort. He drew in air slowly, waiting for the dizziness to fade, and reached for the small bundle beside him. Before stepping outside, he performed the motions that had long since become routine. He adjusted the flight mask, making sure it covered his face properly. Then he took his hat and set it in place with care, not out of vanity, out of necessity. When he pulled aside the fabric at the entrance, the morning greeted him with cold light. The Cathar camp was waking without haste. A few figures rose beside extinguished fire pits. Others checked loads, tightened straps, exchanged low words. The air smelled of salt, old metal, and dead smoke. Behind him, the old port of Cythriel stretched out like a persistent memory. Time-worn structures, incomplete piers, wooden cranes with pulleys and winches unused for generations. Kalen took a few steps, clumsy at first, until he was fully outside the tent. His legs wavered and he had to lean briefly against a nearby post. No one seemed to notice, or no one chose to. From there, he lifted his gaze. On the far side of the island, the contrast was brutal. The new human port gleamed even in the early light. Colossal cranes cut sharp silhouettes against the sky, their lights still burning. Vehicles moved without pause, lines of steel and energy flowing with tireless precision. Everything vibrated, everything pushed forward. And in the heart of that ordered maelstrom, Kalen saw it. Not with his eyes, not entirely. A point where reality did not align, an invisible twist, like a poorly closed wound in the fabric of the world. The resonance there churned, trapped in a cycle that could find no rest. Something had been forced, something had given way. Kalen felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He did not know what had happened. He did not know who had caused it or with what intent, but he knew, with a certainty that allowed no argument, that the consequences were already in motion. Duty followed immediately, firm and ancient. A dissonance of that magnitude could not be ignored, must not be. To correct, to contain, to understand, that had been the purpose of his life long before he became the wanderer, before the names and the running, before the self-imposed silence. Someone had to go, someone with enough knowledge not to worsen the fracture, someone who understood resonance not as a tool, but as a fragile balance. That someone was him. Kalen took a step toward the human port and stopped. Fear rose through his legs without warning, a slight, treacherous tremor that ran through his fingers and tightened his chest. His breathing shortened, uneven. The world seemed to constrict, as if the air itself refused to pass. Humans. The word did not need form. Memory was enough. Loud voices, weapons raised too easily, technology tearing things from the world without understanding them. The veil ripped open by machines that did not listen, that did not feel. Terra. He felt his muscles tense on their own, as if his body had decided to flee without consulting him. His hand shook where it rested against the post. His pulse hammered in his ears. He was not there, but his mind was. Back in places where order was enforced with blows, where resonance was exploited until it shattered. He did not want to go. He did not want to approach that place saturated with humans and their latent violence. He did not want to watch them again, turning the incomprehensible into just another resource. He did not want to feel that familiar mix of anger and guilt that always caught up with him. But the resonance remained. Kalen clenched his teeth. He forced himself to inhale slowly. The tremor did not vanish, but it eased enough for him to remain standing. He knew the signs. This was not physical weakness. It was something deeper, a wound that had never fully closed. The sun began to rise more clearly over the horizon. Light touched the camp, the canvas, the moving bodies. The day advanced, indifferent to his struggle. Kalen the Wanderer stood still, caught between two forces that claimed him with equal intensity. Fear anchored him to the ground. Duty pulled him forward. The resonance vibrated again, a reminder. He closed his eyes. He did not make a decision yet, but he knew the time to hesitate was running out.
The crying came first, sharp and chaotic, slicing through the camp air like a poorly honed blade. Raised voices followed, a murmur that swelled rapidly, carrying with it a tension unlike the calm dawn that had ruled only moments before. Kalen lifted his head, startled. The knot in his chest caused by the dissonance loosened slightly, not because it had vanished, but because another urgency had taken its place. He was silently grateful for the interruption. Not having to decide yet was a relief he refused to examine too closely. He moved cautiously, keeping the distance he always maintained within the caravan. Kalen knew how to make himself invisible without resorting to resonance. Measured steps, lowered gaze, a body positioned at the margins. He stopped close enough to hear, but not so close as to be drawn in. He recognized the family immediately. The father stood at the center of the small circle that had formed, tall even for a Cathar, broad-shouldered, his posture rigid with the weight of an outcome already accepted. His two children clung to his head, one on each side, fingers sunk into the luminous fissures of his skin. The younger sobbed without restraint. The older clenched his jaw, holding back tears with a discipline far beyond his years. A sharp pang struck Kalen's stomach. They were the same ones he had helped the night before. He remembered the effort, the unstable pulse, the way his vital aether had dropped dangerously low when he forced resonance movements to disable their attackers and carve them in escape. It had been a quick, instinctive choice. Now he was seeing its consequences. The mother, Razira, paced in front of the group, gesturing with contained fury. Her voice trembled, not from weakness, but from anger straining not to collapse into tears. "It makes no sense," she cried. "We were the ones attacked. They aimed their weapons at us. Does that count for nothing?" Facing her stood the caravan leader, Kaoraveth, an elderly Cathar whose skin bore deeper cracks, his inner light dimmer but steady. His presence commanded respect without the need to raise his voice. Beside him, visibly nervous, floated a Lumini merchant, Elir of the Crossroads, accompanied by his assistant, Sail, both still wearing their flight masks. Their breathing was fast and uneven. The journey had been rushed. "The island prefects are already on their way," Elir said, his voice carrying a faint vibration. Sail nodded, swallowing hard. "They have visual identification and records. There's no room for doubt this time." Then the name fell, heavy as a sentence. "They're looking for Razak," the Lumini continued. "He's been fully identified as the aggressor against a security guard in the port's commercial district." Razak did not look up. One hand rested on the ground, the other holding his children as if anchoring himself to the present required conscious effort. "We were provoked," Razira shot back, her voice finally breaking. "Those bastards called us the N-word to our faces and then opened fire. If we're alive, it's because of a miracle. Is that a crime too?" Kaoraveth listened without interrupting. When he spoke, his tone was deep and weary. "I do not question your truth, Razira, nor Razak's. But humans do not judge from that place. To them, a guard was assaulted, and these days, that is enough." A murmur rippled through those gathered. Kalen felt the dense resignation hanging in the air, a shared emotion that needed no words. "These are dark times for our people. We are few, we are scattered, we are watched with suspicion in every port, every market. The Crossroads was one of the last places where we were still allowed to trade without escorts or impossible conditions." He paused, looking around as if trying to imprint the moment into collective memory. "That is changing. I would not be surprised if next cycle, this caravan is no longer welcome here." Razira shook her head, unable to accept what she was hearing. "And what are we supposed to do? Bow our heads? Hand over one of our own so the humans can feel safe?" Kaoraveth did not look away. adapt, not fight an environment that overwhelms us, but learn to survive within it. That is what we have always done." His voice grew softer, but no less firm. "Our ancestors endured on a continent where no one else could, where ice shattered bones and fire devoured mountains, where grass did not grow, and still we raised clans, shelters, history." He placed a hand over his chest, over the dim fissures in his skin. "Our skin grew thick around our fractures. From them our inner light was born, not because the world was kind to us, but because we refused to vanish." The children stopped crying, attentive to the old man's tone. Even Razira fell silent, eyes wet. "One day," Kawaraveth concluded, "the Cathar will shine again without asking permission. But until then, we must endure, even when it hurts, even when it feels unjust." Kaelin heard every word as if they were meant for him as well. The trauma he sensed was not individual. It was ancient, passed down through generations, reinforced by every rejection, every suspicious glance, every law written without them in mind. He understood, with bitter clarity, that the tear in the veil was not the only open wound in that place, and he knew, though he was not yet ready to admit it, that no dissonance was more dangerous than the one that forced an entire people to accept their own sacrifice as the price of existence. Razira listened to Kawaraveth's words with her head bowed, shoulders drawn tight, as if each sentence pressed down on her with a weight that could not be shared. When she finally looked up, her eyes shone with a mixture of anger and fear she no longer tried to hide. "I understand," she said at last, her voice rough. "I understand what you're saying, Elder. I understand what we've always been taught. But even so," she brought a hand to her chest, "I can't stop being afraid for him." Her lips tightened as she fought the tremor threatening to break her. "We were saved by a miracle," she went on, "by something I can't even begin to understand. And now it feels as if the Archons lifted us up only to hurl us back to the ground even harder. Why do they persecute us so relentlessly?" Around them, some members of the caravan turned away. Others lowered their heads in silence. An elderly Cathar clasped a small carving of dark stone in her hands, worn smooth by years of use, the figure of the Archon warrior, torso upright, weapon resting against the ground. Her lips moved in a prayer barely loud enough to hear. Razak lifted his head for the first time. His expression remained stoic, but there was a hard calm in his gaze, born of acceptance rather than hope. Carefully, he released his children and handed them to a nearby relative who took them without a word. Then he rose, slowly, with dignity. "It is not for us to question the primordials," he said, his voice deep, "nor to demand explanations for their silence." He turned to Razira and placed a large hand on her shoulder. "It is for us to place ourselves in their hands. That is what I will do." The murmur grew, but he continued. "I will surrender to human justice. I will face punishment for what I did, not for them, but for our people, so the caravan does not carry one more burden of blame, so our children may have somewhere to grow." Razira shook her head, tears now spilling freely. "No," she whispered, "I can't." "Yes, you can," he replied gently, firmly. "You are strong. You always have been. The clan will not abandon you." He drew her into his arms and they embraced for a long, silent moment, heavy with everything they could not bring themselves to say. Nearby, a young Cathar pressed his forehead to the ground and murmured a prayer to the Archon Mother, asking protection for those who would be left behind. Kaelin looked away. A knot tightened in his throat with unexpected force. This was not only the result of human violence or collective fear, it bore his mark as well. The resonance he had forced, the miracle he had granted in the dark, had pushed events toward this moment. He took a step back, then another. He decided to leave before anyone noticed him, before the weight of their gazes found him. He lowered his head and prepared to vanish among the tents, as he had done so many times before. Have you had enough of watching the consequences of your reckless actions? The voice stopped him cold. Kalen turned slowly. Before him stood another hooded figure, motionless with a posture that needed no aggression to command authority. For a second, the figure said nothing. Then they raised their hands and pulled back the hood. Gron's face emerged in the dawnlight. His beard, grayer than the last time Kalen had seen him, fell thick over his chest. Deep lines carved his weathered face. His right arm ended in a stump wrapped in dark leather, just as Kalen remembered. And yet his presence remained imposing, solid, like a rock that refused to yield. If I hadn't intervened, Kalen replied, struggling to keep the tremor from his voice, the guards would have shot them. They would have killed them. I wasn't going to stand by and watch. Gron studied him in silence for a moment. Then he said at last, maybe, but saving them didn't erase the rest of the world. Kalen clenched his fists. My intervention gave them a chance, he shot back. Even in a cell, Razak will still be alive. That matters. Chances are running out, Gron said flatly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. The humans aren't just coming for him. They're looking for the Resonant who helped them. A sudden chill ran down Kalen's spine. You think you've been discreet, but you haven't been discreet. Not when you spend your days going in and out of shops, repairing aether crystals, fixing domestic resonance nodes in exchange for root bread and a few coins. Kalen opened his mouth to respond. It's enough to eat and sleep. I don't need more. Gron shook his head slowly. Not when the humans are already on the way, and especially not now that I've learned something else. He paused. The silence grew heavy. Phyrexar Korvax is in the crossroads. The name fell like a slab of stone. Kalen felt his breath catch. The memory of that presence, of that contained and calculated violence, cut through his mind with unwelcome clarity. Phyrexar wasn't just an enemy, he was a threat that warped everything around him. He's following your trail, Gron added, or the trail of what you represent. Kalen said nothing. He turned on his heel, jaw tight. I'll have my things ready, he said without looking back. He walked away without turning while the camp continued to prepare for yet another forced farewell. Behind him, prayers to the Archons carried on in low murmurs, a fragile thread of faith holding together a people who refused to vanish. Dawn had barely settled over base Prometheus when Eco 25's recharge module initiated its activation sequence. Inside the cylindrical container embedded in the wall, indicators shifted from amber to steady white. Luminous seals traced the internal frame like a restrained pulse. Gala did not open her eyes immediately. First came the basic systems: structural integrity, synth core stability, sensor synchronization. Then the orientation subroutines and operational memory. The world returned in orderly layers, exactly as her design prescribed. When she finally unfolded her synthetic eyelids, the recharge bay resolved before her with mathematical precision. A row of identical modules lined both sides of the corridor, each housing an eco unit still in standby. The space was dominated by the low hum of support systems and the cold light filtering down from overhead panels. Gala logged the local time, her assigned activity cycle, and the list of preliminary tasks. That was when she detected the anomaly. Just centimeters from her feet, on the polished floor, something small and warm was breathing slowly. Thermal sensors marked a compact shape of low mass with an irregular but stable energy pattern. Gala lowered her gaze. The Luripuff was curled into itself, its fluffy coat rising and falling with each breath. Its tongue peeked slightly between its lips, and one of its short legs twitched when Gala adjusted her angle of observation. The identification system cross-referenced data immediately. Species: Ethereal Luripuff. Classification: minor fauna. Status: unauthorized within military installations. Potential risk: low. Note:
considered a pest in certain enclosed environments. The protocol was clear. Gala bent her knees and extended her hands with precise movement. She grasped the creature by the torso, applying the minimum force required to remove it from the area. At that moment, she detected the presence of an identification tag attached to the animal's fur. On closer inspection, the heart-shaped metal plate bore a single engraved name, Tuki. Contextual data suggested that the luripuff was most likely a pet. Under normal circumstances, identification tags included contact or registry information for the owner. That alone would have sufficed, but such data was absent from the plate. Regardless, Tuki reacted to the prolonged contact. It emitted a short vibrating sound and began wagging its tail with enthusiasm. Its paws moved through the air, seeking purchase, and its tongue slipped fully out as it tried to lick the smooth surface of Gala's fingers. The creature showed no signs of stress or attempts to flee. Quite the opposite. Gala paused. Her sensors registered the contact, the texture of the fur, the sudden increase in activity within the small body. Response algorithms anticipated struggling, alarm vocalizations, escape attempts. None of those parameters were met. Tuki tilted its head and looked directly at her. For several seconds, Gala executed no further action. She simply held it, observing with a level of attention not listed among her priority routines. The luripuff responded by bringing its snout closer to her face, curious, and emitted that soft, almost contented sound again. There was no verbalization, but the analysis subroutine extended longer than usual. Around them, other modules began to activate. Indicator lights flickered on one after another. The mechanical murmur grew louder as eco units emerged from standby. The environment demanded normality. Tuki, as if sensing the change, twisted with unexpected agility. It slipped free of her grasp without force, scrambled up Gala's forearm, and used her head as a point of leverage. In one fluid motion, it leapt to the nearby wall and began moving along it with complete ease, defying gravity on tiny paws. Gala turned her neck to follow it. The luripuff reached the ceiling and vanished among ducts, cables, and shadows, disappearing into Prometheus's internal lattice as if it had always belonged there. Protocol reasserted itself. Incident: presence of unauthorized fauna. Recommended action: report to maintenance and biological control. Gala logged the recommendation. She archived it. She did not transmit it. When the time came for roll call, her voice was clear and even. Eco 25 operational. Status: no irregularities. Ready for assignment. No anomaly was recorded. The eco units exited their modules in orderly formation, moving toward their assigned destinations within the base. Gala advanced with them, her step precise, posture aligned, expressionless face exactly as expected of an android of her class. Yet as she crossed the corridor threshold, Gala turned her head by barely a degree toward the corner where Tuki had disappeared. Her sensors detected nothing. Still, for a fraction of a second unrecorded in any log, Gala held her gaze there before facing forward again and continuing just like the others.
Dawn slipped into the military police offices of Prometheus with a pale light, filtered through tall windows that were never meant to inspire anything. They illuminated just enough to work. Elijah Ward finished fastening his uniform in front of the metal locker, checking every clasp with the same methodical attention he always used. The reflection staring back from the polished surface showed a tired face, dark circles under his eyes, and a beard growing faster than he would have liked. He had slept little, far too little. His body knew it and reminded him with a persistent stiffness in his back and a faint buzzing behind his eyes. It had been a long night. Overtime hours spent reviewing incomplete reports, contradictory statements, and recordings that never quite said what they promised to say. The incident in the commercial district still hung over the base like an uncomfortable shadow. A Cathar family assaulted, guards who had reacted with violence that was hard to justify, and in the middle of it all, the intervention of an unknown resonant who had vanished without a trace. Elijah closed the locker softly and took his cap. He knew that file would not be closed anytime soon. He also knew that when it finally was, it would not be in the fairest way. He was not naive, just realistic. He walked toward the common area while finishing the adjustment of his gloves. Some of his colleagues were already there, leaning against tables with steaming cups of coffee and half-muted conversations. The general murmur carried a different tone, a morbid excitement Elijah recognized immediately. "Hey, did you hear what happened to that idiot Kojak?" Elijah paused for just a fraction of a second before continuing on, without intervening. "The dumbass got completely loaded on garbage and fell down the stairs, right on the officer's floor, no less. They say he's comatose," a third added, lowering his voice as if that made the story more serious. "Severe trauma, several vertebrae crushed. If he wakes up, it'll be a miracle." Elijah rested a hand on the nearest table. "Ruiz?" he asked, not hiding his surprise. "Walter Ruiz?" "That's the one," someone replied with a shrug. "Found him sprawled like a rag doll on the stairs." The information settled slowly in his mind. Ruiz, Kojak, prior disciplinary issues, inappropriate comments, reports that always seemed to end in warnings without real follow-up. Elijah frowned. What was he doing on the officer's floor? Isn't that sector under permanent access control? Glances crossed. Some drank their coffee. Others smiled with weary amusement. "Good question, Sergeant, but it's not on our payroll." Elijah did not smile. "And how the hell is everyone getting their hands on that crap? Don't tell me nobody's noticed." There was a brief silence, then a collective sigh. "Look, Ward," another voice cut in, lower now. "Asking those kinds of questions is what gets you sent to Valgor Akar at the ass end of nowhere, or worse." Elijah clenched his jaw. He knew that argument. He'd heard it before in different words. He knew exactly where he stood in Prometheus's unwritten hierarchy. He had no patrons, no heavy surname, he owed no favors, and he had no intention of incurring them, and that had a cost. "Understood," he said at last, just thinking out loud. No one replied. The topic dissolved quickly, as if it had never existed. Before Elijah could add anything else, a female voice called to him from the corridor. "Sergeant Ward." He turned. The administrative officer approached with a digital folder tucked under her arm, uniform impeccable, stride decisive. Elijah acknowledged with a nod. "The captain wants to see you, now." "Thank you," he replied, adding nothing more. As he walked away, he heard the soft whistles and murmured comments behind him. He didn't need to look to know his colleagues had already found a more comfortable distraction than an unconscious soldier and inconvenient questions. Elijah continued down the corridor, the echo of his steps marking the rhythm of a morning that had barely begun and already weighed like a full day's work. He did not consider himself a hero or a martyr, just someone doing his job as well as he could within a system that rarely rewarded that. He straightened his back before reaching the captain's door. He was not naive. He was not stupid either. He simply knew exactly where he stood. Elijah knocked twice with his knuckles and waited barely a second before the clipped order came from inside.
"Come in."
He pushed the door open and entered the office of Captain Marcus Hale, the officer commanding the military police of FOB Prometheus. The rank showed even without insignia, the rigid posture, the immaculate desk, the way he held his data tablet without really looking at it. Hale was a long career man, deep-voiced and selectively patient, the kind who had learned to survive more by knowing when to stay quiet than by asking too many questions. "Sergeant Ward," he said without lifting his gaze, "close the door." Elijah obeyed and came to attention before the desk, tired but alert. Hale set the tablet aside and finally looked at him, evaluating him with a neutral expression that did not entirely conceal shared exhaustion. "It's been a busy night," the captain went on, "and it looks like it's going to stay that way." Elijah did not respond. He waited. "We've received a formal request for support," Hale said. "It comes from Prefect Aetheria Sithlan, Lumini Authority of the Western District. She wants us to lead a small unit to assist in the apprehension of a Cathar suspect involved in the commercial district incident." He activated the tablet and turned the screen toward Elijah. The name appeared clearly. Sejen Razak. "Identified as a member of the Cathar caravan stationed at the old port," Hale added. "The order is to place him in custody and transfer him to human authorities for processing." Elijah inclined his head, reading quickly. "I lead the unit, sir?" "That's correct." Hale interlaced his fingers and leaned back in his chair. "It was the prefect who specifically requested your presence," he said with a lopsided smile. "Seems you're making quite an impression with the local Lumini." Elijah blinked. "I wasn't aware of that, sir." "Don't worry about it," Hale replied. "I just hope you're not allergic to insects or fairy dust or whatever else junk those bugs shed when they get excited." The jab was obvious, though not malicious. Hale sighed. "Jokes aside, Ward, I'm sending you because you're one of the few people here with enough judgment to handle an operation like this without turning it into a native massacre. We don't need more diplomatic problems." Elijah nodded solemnly. "I'll do what's necessary to ensure the arrest is carried out without incident, sir." At that moment, the door opened again. One of his colleagues leaned against the frame with excessive familiarity, flashing a grin loaded with intent. "Captain, just wanted to wish the sergeant luck and hope Lieutenant Vega doesn't find out he's getting tangled up with the locals." Elijah turned his head, confused. "Excuse me?" "Come on, Ward. That girl's special. She makes friends with her printer, talks to androids like they're people. Who knows what she'd do if she found out about your exotic adventures?" Elijah frowned, genuinely perplexed. "Lieutenant Vega is a very kind and competent person. She's always far too busy to be interested in anyone else's private life, and I don't see why she'd be bothered by something like that even if it were true." The silence that followed was heavy. Captain Hale brought 2 fingers to the bridge of his nose. Elijah's colleague closed his eyes for a moment as if counting to 10 to avoid saying anything. From the hallway came a muffled murmur, someone holding back a laugh. "Good Lord," someone muttered. "Ward," said the captain without opening his eyes, "sometimes I think you're dangerously competent at certain things and alarmingly clueless at others." At that precise moment, the captain's assistant, the curvy administrative officer who had gone to fetch Elijah, entered the office carrying a new digital folder. Her tailored uniform traced every movement with deliberate intent. She passed in front of Elijah slowly, just long enough to catch any wandering glance. Elijah did not look up. He was focused on the tablet, reading coordinates, protocols, and the names assigned to the unit. The officer paused for a second, clearly expecting something. She got nothing. With a tight smile, she continued on and placed the documents on the captain's desk. Hale watched the scene with an expression hovering between resignation and contained amusement. "Get ready, Ward," he said. "You roll out in 30 minutes. I want a full report when you return." "Yes, sir." Captain Hale slid the documents toward himself with unhurried care, reviewing them one by one while Elijah remained standing before the desk, attentive, hands relaxed at his sides. The silence was broken only by the soft ambient hum of the office and the faint brush of the captain's fingers against the tablet's surface. Hale frowned as he reached the final pages. "Before you go," he said without lifting his gaze, "there's something else you should know." He turned the screen toward Ward and enlarged 2 files marked high priority. "These just came in, wanted individuals. They're not directly tied to your Cathar mission, but if you see them or find any trace of their whereabouts, you are to report it immediately." Elijah stepped closer. The first file displayed the image of a slender figure with crystalline features, translucent skin threaded with delicate veins of inner light. Beneath it, the name appeared in elegant type. Kalesa Gayani. Origin, glacy shimmer. Status, crystalline noble,
search requested by her lineage. Her family requested assistance in locating her, Hale explained. Apparently, she chose to disappear ahead of an arranged marriage. They want her found and returned home as soon as possible. The office door swung open before Elijah could comment further. A group of officers poured in almost at once, drawn like moths to fresh information. The murmur rose immediately, charged with poorly concealed excitement. "Gayani?" one said, leaning toward the screen. "As in House Gayani, the one tied to crystally royalty?" "Those Gayani?" another added. "You've got to be kidding. That's the absolute top of the noble food chain." "Doesn't surprise me you'd know that, Henderson," someone jeered from the back. "Your entire feed is royal gossip." "Hey," Henderson protested. "Not my fault Queen Tanis is frame-worthy." Laughter burst out. "Well, this Gayani isn't hard on the eyes either," someone remarked, zooming in on the image. "Wouldn't mind escorting her back to Glacy Shimmer." Sure, a third chimed in, "but I'll be the one putting hands on her first, properly restrained so the spoiled girl doesn't run again." "I'd say she just needs more adventure," someone else said with a crooked grin, "and I'd be happy to give it to her, no matter how insatiable she looks." Elijah did not react. He neither frowned nor intervened. He simply looked away from the crystally file. The second image had captured his full attention. It was just a suspect sketch of a face fully covered by an old Lumini mask under a wide-brimmed hat. No visible marks rather than the name that appeared plainly. Kalen, the Wanderer. Status, unregistered resident. Note, possible link to Cathar caravan. The world around him seemed to dim. The memory returned with sharp clarity. The confrontation in the commercial district, the chaos, the fight, the Cathar family on the brink of being gunned down, and then the anomaly, the strange empty glass vial he had picked up afterwards in that dark alley. At the time, it had been nothing more than a hunch. Now, the pieces were beginning to align. "He's wanted for questioning," Hale said, noticing his interest. "Nothing formal yet, but the directive is clear. If he's with the caravan, you might cross paths with him during your mission." "A resonant?" one of the officers scoffed, glancing at Ward. "Seriously? You're more interested in that stinking drifter than the runaway crystally princess?" "Leave him alone," another laughed. "Even if he found her, he wouldn't know what to do with her." Laughter rippled through the room. Even Hale let out a brief, weary chuckle. The administrative assistant, still near the desk, smiled with restrained amusement. Elijah did not join in. His mind was already elsewhere, replaying details, tracing possible routes, recalling observed behavior. There was no excitement on his face, only focus. He did not see Kalen as a trophy or an exotic curiosity. He saw him as a key piece in a puzzle that kept expanding. "Understood, sir," he said, at last, his voice steady. "I'll keep an eye out for both." Hale studied him with renewed attention. "I expect you to, Ward. You're dismissed, and good hunting." Elijah nodded, turned, and left the office as the laughter continued behind him. He did not share his colleagues' enthusiasm or their levity. For him, this was neither a game nor a parade of intriguing profiles. He had found a trail, and he intended to follow it. The engineering complex woke with a pulse unlike the rest of the base. There was none of the martial bustle of the military police corridors, nor the near-ceremonial silence of the eco-modules. Here, dawn filtered through diagnostic panels, dormant mechanical arms and screens that never fully powered down. Zoe Vega stood before an open console, shoulders tight, fingers moving with a precision that contrasted sharply with the faint tremor running through her hands. She had slept little, almost not at all. Her body was still collecting its due, a persistent ache along her ribs, stiffness in her neck, an uncomfortable sensation under her skin she could not shake. Every unexpected sound made her turn her head. Every shadow reflected in the console's glass triggered a brief but intense alarm. "Did you hear about that Kojak guy?" someone murmured behind her. "They say he's completely wrecked." "Fell down the stairs, right? High as a kite. Hell of a way to ruin your career." Zoe clenched her teeth.
She didn't look up. She didn't comment. She simply dragged a code window across the display and confirmed the installation of a new package in EC025 system. Combat Resonance Protocols, Phase 1. Authorization, Colonel Strickland. Crazy, a third voice added, and right on the officer's floor, like nobody's watching anything. A sharp pinch hit Zoe's stomach. The tremor in her fingers spiked for a second. She forced her breathing to slow. 1, 2, 3. She kept working. Installation at 72%, Gala reported, standing beside her. Lieutenant Zoe Vega, I am detecting irregularities in your heart rate and skin conductance. You are presenting symptoms consistent with acute post-traumatic stress. Zoe straightened abruptly. What? No, that's nonsense, she shot back, too quickly. It has to be interference from the new protocols. They're pulling a lot of processing power. It's normal for your readings to drift. Gala tilted her head slightly, the minimal but recognizable gesture. My internal sensors are operating within optimal parameters. The correlation between your vital signs and recent events is statistically significant. I recommend rest, hydration, and cognitive discharge exercises. Recommendation rejected, Zoe said, turning back to the console. Focus on your job. A brief silence followed. Understood, Gala accepted. Additional observation. Resonant combat does not appear to differ substantially from the basic aethermancy operations I already execute with efficiency. Zoe froze. She blinked once. Then a crooked smile appeared. Oh, no, she said, turning toward Gala. That's where you're wrong, sweetheart. The shift was almost immediate. Her shoulders loosened, her voice lifted half a tone, her eyes lit with a different kind of energy. Basic aethermancy is like, I don't know, throwing out isolated attacks. Bread and butter stuff. Powerful, sure, but unstructured. Resonant combat is something else entirely. It's system, it's synergy, it's understanding the full flow of resonance. Gala watched her in silence. Everything breaks down into 4 branches: transmutation, dominion, bond, and infusion. Each one does something different and burns vital aether in its own way. You can't just spam abilities or you drain yourself dry and collapse. There are conditions, costs, risks. She gestured broadly with her hands. Transmutation alters matter and energy, changing shapes, creating structures, breaking things. Brutal, but insanely expensive. Dominion controls the environment, fields, vectors, gravity, barriers. Less raw damage, more control. Bond, her voice dropped slightly. That's the emotional and spiritual side. Communication, empathy, synchronization. And infusion enhances the body or weapons, speed, strength, endurance. She stopped in front of Gala. And the best part is, you can combine them. Chained moves, prepared techniques, gambits. Miss the timing and you fry yourself. Get it right? She smiled. It's beautiful. Gala processed the information. Your description aligns with ludified combat models. Source of your knowledge? Zoe answered without thinking. Aetheria's Symphony, she said, without thinking. I spent hours playing it as a kid. Hours. My mom used to say it would rot my brain, but I knew it'd be useful someday. I memorized every skill tree, every boss, every broken build. She stopped abruptly, the word mom hanging in her thoughts. She swallowed. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Before the silence could settle, Gala spoke. Question: if humans do not possess vital aether, how do they participate in resonant combat? Zoe welcomed the distraction more than she wanted to admit. They can't, not directly. We're from Terra, a world without aether. We don't have the biology for it. That's why you don't see humans throwing spells around. She gestured toward Gala. ECO units exist to get around that limitation. You're conduits, artificial resonant cores. Basically, you do what we can't. She chuckled softly. It's like humans went ahead and created a 5th aetheric race all by themselves. She looked at Gala with playful mischief. Can you imagine? Terrans as the 5th Archon? Ha! She shrugged. The Aethericians wouldn't find that funny and all. The fifth archon is a total taboo. They'd burn me alive for heresy if they heard me say that. Gala inclined her head. Noted, avoid theological discussions with practitioners of the archontic legacy. Zoe let out a short, genuine laugh. Then she turned back to the console. All right, let's keep going before someone else starts talking about stairs. As the protocols continued to install, Zoe felt the tremor in her hands ease slightly. It didn't vanish, but for a moment, focused on systems, rules, and worlds she understood, the noise in her head stayed at bay. The armored vehicle rolled across the uneven ground of the old port with a restrained roar, kicking up dust and drawing every eye in its path. It was a machine designed to command respect long before firing a single shot. Its angular hull caught the low morning light, and the twin 20mm cannons rotated in a slow, deliberate motion until they aligned forward, loaded, ready. Not an explicit threat, yet no one present doubted the message. The Cathar camp tightened like a drawn cord. Some abandoned their tasks, others gathered near the tents. The luminous fissures in their skin flared with a stronger pulse, an unmistakable sign of alert. Collective memory knew how to read an arrival like this. The armored vehicle came to a halt. The side hatch lowered with a hydraulic hiss, and Elijah Ward was the first to step down. He did not carry his weapon in his hands. It remained secured at his side, visible but inactive. He walked forward a few paces, posture upright, stride steady, projecting a calm that was not feigned. Hold position, he ordered his squad without raising his voice. No one aims at anyone. His men complied without hesitation. The tension was palpable, but it began to loosen as Ward addressed the camp in a firm yet conciliatory tone. Prometheus Military Police, we're here in support. No one is getting hurt if everyone keeps calm. He did not shout, he did not harden his voice, and yet he was heard. That was when the tension truly began to ebb. Not completely, but enough for the air to circulate again. Ward scanned the area openly without abrupt gestures, making it clear he had come to contain, not provoke. A luminous figure descended toward him from a lateral angle. Prefect Aetheria Sithlon unfurled her wings of light with a smooth, almost unconscious motion, tracing iridescent patterns in the air as she floated down to his side. The movement carried something intimate, something learned more by instinct than by protocol. She stopped close to him, closer than those who knew how to read such signals would miss. "Sergeant Ward," she said, inclining her head slightly, "I'm glad to see you here." Elijah returned the gesture with professional courtesy. "Prefect, how's the situation?" Aetheria dimmed the glow of her wings as she spoke. "We've reached a peaceful agreement with the caravan. Tsagen Razak has chosen to surrender voluntarily. That will be considered a mitigating factor." Elijah released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "That's good news," he replied. "I truly hope the authorities show leniency. He's a father who acted to protect his family. I can empathize with that." To the members of his squad and to the Lumini attendants observing from a distance, Aetheria's interest in the sergeant was unmistakable. The way she inclined her face toward him, the way her wings brightened when he spoke, none of it registered with Elijah, whose attention had already shifted toward the camp, reading faces, scanning for patterns, traces, signs of something more. Aetheria studied him intently, then removed her flight mask in a fluid gesture, as if she needed to draw breath. Her appearance was impossible to ignore. Hair of near-translucent neon pink fell in soft waves around a delicate, symmetrical face. Her large almond-shaped eyes held golden irises that shone with their own light, framed by black sclera that intensified their gaze. Two slender antennae rose from her forehead, vibrating with subtle shifts in color that reflected her emotions. She carried the bearing of an ethereal being, like a luminous fae drawn from a dream. "You show great consideration for families. It's a quality I've rarely encountered among the human warriors I've dealt with before." I'm just doing my job, Elijah replied, eyes still on the camp, and I'd rather no one get hurt. A mate protected by someone like you would be very fortunate, she remarked, her radiant face warming with an involuntary blush as her antennae quivered softly, and blessed with strong and abundant offspring. Elijah took a moment to respond, not because of the implication, but because he had just noticed movement at the far edge of the camp, a timely withdrawal, perhaps. Have you had any leads on Kalen, the Resonant? He asked, unaware of the abrupt shift in topic. Aetheria blinked, momentarily thrown. No, she answered, no confirmed sightings since the incident. Elijah nodded, brow faintly furrowed. His attention continued to sweep the surroundings, comparing silhouettes, eliminating possibilities, tracing the route of a pair of figures retreating in the distance. That was when the Cathar began to advance. The procession formed with solemnity. At the front walked Kaor Veth, the elderly leader of the caravan, his step firm, his face hardened by necessity. At his side was Ilir, the Lumini merchant whose presence served as a bridge between cultures. Behind them, escorted by several clan members, came Razak. His head was bowed, resigned, shoulders tense, but his gaze clear. Aetheria replaced her flight mask. The change was immediate. Emotional radiance faded, replaced by the cool composure of authority. Tasa Gen Razak, she declared clearly, you are under arrest in the name of the local authority for assaulting a guard and a citizen of Terra. You will be taken into custody to face a fair and expediting process. Razak lifted his head. I will cooperate, he said, for the good of my clan, for the good of my people. He extended his arms without hesitation. The restraints closed around his wrists with a muted click. Lumini prefects surrounded him in coordinated movements and guided him toward their hovering vehicle. The organic dirigible waited nearby, suspended by a large translucent bladder that pulsed with gentle light. Its surfaces seemed alive, responding to the environment with subtle shifts of color and texture. When Razak was led aboard, the silence broke. Razira fell to her knees, her voice shattering as she wept. Her children clung to her, trembling. The vehicle began to rise slowly, carrying away husband and father. How long will it ever be enough for you? Razira cried, lifting her gaze toward Elijah. Is it not enough to take our resources? Now you tear families apart too. Will you only be satisfied when the last Cathar is forgotten? Elijah stepped forward and knelt before her, bringing himself to her level. I can't speak for all of Terra, he said firmly, but I can speak for myself and for the men under my command. We are like you, people trying to live and prosper without harming others. We came for exchange, for opportunities exhausted in our world of origin, not for extermination. He placed a fist over his heart. This is a tragedy, and we must learn from it so it doesn't happen again. Razak showed goodwill. That matters. I trust it will be enough for justice to be served and for him to return to his family. He looked up at the departing dirigible. Your husband has my respect, he added. Defending one's own is something I understand. Aetheria beat her wings, which flared with warm, radiant patterns of light, impossible to hide. Her emotion was evident. The Cathar, though still grieving, began to steady. The murmurs gave way to a deep, ancient chant, taken up in unison. Kaor Veth was the first to intone it, his voice low and rough, more felt than heard. He did not raise his arms, he closed his eyes. A single fist struck his chest, opening the right. Hollow, contained. The sound reverberated through the others like an ancient command. Then all responded, fist to chest, a firm step upon the earth. Silence. The rhythm repeated, slow and heavy, like a wounded heart refusing to stop. On the third repetition, voices joined, deep and coarse, woven into a single collective breath. Fist strike. Blood departs, the land remains. Step. The roar fades, the path endures. Long silence. Fist strike. Walk on, brother, beyond the sun. Step. Where night does not bite the heart. 2 softer steps. Shared fist strike, nearly unison. Leave your name in stone and skin. Brief silence. The winds will guard it. The honey will drink it. The voices did not tremble. With each verse, the camp's shaking eased. Some Cathar bowed their heads, others clenched their fists until their knuckles blanched. None wept. Grief did not spill. It was held. Collective heavy step. Green plains, endless home. Final fist strike. There awaits us the ancestral fire. Absolute silence. For several heartbeats, no one spoke. Not even the wind dared cross the circle. The dirigible bearing Razak vanished into the morning sky. Elijah stood in silence, listening to the chant, eyes fixed on the horizon as the weight of the moment settled over all present. Then, like a murmur that did not break the rite but sealed it, came the closing words, lower, almost a shared whisper. It is not goodbye, it is promise in the voice. When the clan gathers, we will be 2, we will be all, we will be 1. The final echo faded slowly, and with it the tension that had gripped the camp. The pain remained, but now it had shape, rhythm, and memory. And for the Cathar, that was enough to remain standing. At the far end of the camp, well away from the armored vehicle and the eyes fixed on Razak's procession, 2 figures moved with the discretion of those who had learned how to vanish without leaving a trace. Gron went first, his satchel slung over his good shoulder, his stride steady despite the uneven ground. Kalen followed close behind, hood pulled low, flight mask secured. There were no warnings, no farewells. No one saw them leave, or no one chose to. Just before disappearing fully into the tree line, Kalen paused. From there, he could still make out the heart of the camp. The group gathered around Razak, the human and lumini figures, the distant glow of the prefect's wings. He felt the weight of the moment, an uncomfortable pressure beneath his sternum. Then something else made him tense. One of the Terran soldiers had turned his head. It was not a casual glance, not a sweep of the surroundings without focus. It was fixed, direct, as if against all logic, the man could see him through tense bodies and hanging dust. Kalen held the gaze for barely a second, just long enough to feel a shiver run down his spine. "Move," Gron growled without looking back. "If we're lucky, we can catch the freighter to Aetheria. Dawn-Crest Ridge still takes those who know how to pay favors." Kalen nodded and resumed walking. The vegetation closed around them quickly. The bordering forest was dense and damp, roots rising from the soil like traps and foliage scraping skin as they passed. After a stretch of hurried jogging, Gron's discomfort became evident. "Cursed place," he muttered. "Cathar aren't built for this. We need horizon, space, plains where we can ride Yermak and herd Gormax, not the snare that bites at your legs." Kalen did not answer, but suddenly raised a hand, warning his companion. Gron fell silent at once. The change was subtle but unmistakable to those who had survived long enough to recognize it. The air had grown heavy. The forest, which until then had crackled with insects and birds, dropped into an abrupt, unnatural silence. Kalen did not turn. He made no further gesture. "Run," he whispered. There was no time for questions. The first hunting roar tore through the forest like a physical blow, deep, vibrant, a call not meant to intimidate but to coordinate. The plucked Serath had found their trail. Swift shadows moved between the trunks, far too fast for untrained eyes. The Brotherhood of the Broken Verge advanced like a single organism, each member taking their place with lethal precision. Their mohawk crests, short, hardened feathers, stood out even in motion, a signal known across all Aetheria. Where they appeared, violence followed. Morghak Irthun led the charge. His build was massive even for a Seraph. Each stride crushed leaves and branches without costing him speed. His deep-set eyes never blinked. He did not need to hurry. He knew the prey would run where he wanted. To the left glided Kururoth, the tracker, leaner, nearly silent, muzzle low, the prehensile claws of his feet biting into damp earth to change direction without losing momentum. He read the ground like an open text. Footprints, broken leaves, a freshly splintered branch, everything spoke. Behind them, laughing under his breath, came Jaru. His voice threaded through the trees, accompanied by the faint chime of small runic devices strapped to his belt. His eyes gleamed with twisted amusement as he prepared charges that did not require direct contact to wound. Gron and Kaelin ran. Branches lashed their faces, roots reached to catch them. The terrain favored their pursuers. Gron snarled with each leap, the weight of his satchel and the absence of his right arm forcing him to compensate with each movement. Kaelin kept pace, breathing controlled, but he knew it could not last. Another roar thundered, closer now. Kururoth appeared at their flank, leaping between trunks with the aid of the sharp feathers jutting from his forearms, using them like crude wings to gain height and land farther ahead. His claws dug into a tree, and he twisted his body with impossible agility for his size. "They're closing us in," Gron said through clenched teeth. A dull explosion shook the ground behind them. Jaru had tested one of his charges, not to hit them, but to drive them towards a narrower corridor. He laughed loudly, a sound devoid of joy. Morghak roared again, this time short, a clear command. Kaelin felt the ring tighten. They were not just fast, they fought, they anticipated. The forest belonged to them. Even without calling on resonance, their bodies were complete weapons. Strength, speed, agility, intelligence, all honed for the hunt. Kaelin looked ahead, searching for an exit that did not yet exist. And then, the ground changed beneath his feet. The forest opened slightly, just enough to shift the nature of the chase precisely as the plucked tightened the ring and the next hunting roars sounded far too close. The forest finished closing around them with cruel precision. Kaelin understood too late. The change in terrain was not an escape, but a mouth, a narrow, uneven clearing where trunks formed a natural semicircle and the undergrowth dropped low and treacherous. Light filtered in sharp beams from above, breaking the protective gloom that had accompanied their flight. The kill zone. Gron was the first to fall. A shadow dropped from high in a tree with a solid impact. Korath landed on his back, the prehensile claws of his feet biting into improvised armor. The blow slammed Gron face first into the ground. He roared, trying to rise with his good shoulder, but a precise kick to the temple left him stunned. Not unconscious, just enough to understand there would be no honor, no duel, only delayed execution. Kaelin spun, searching for space, air, time. Zaru emerged laughing between the trees, walking unhurriedly as if the pursuit had merely been a prelude. He tossed a small runic device to the ground. It burst in a sharp pulse, not lethal, but destabilizing. Kaelin felt the earth shudder beneath him and lost his balance. "How lovely," Zaru mocked. "You used the forest to slip past the humans. Very clever, very elegant." Another step, another pulse. "Shame. You chose the exact place we wanted you." Kaelin rolled, pushed up on one knee and raised a hand. Resonant instinct flared with contained desperation. The veil answered, barely enough to begin a quick movement, a brief shove to buy him space. It never completed. Morghak Earthen crashed down on him with the force of an avalanche. Prehensile claws closed around Kalen's shoulders and slammed him into the ground with total violence. The air exploded from his lungs in a single brutal exhale. The impact tore the hat from his head and flung the flight mask several meters away, bouncing among roots and leaves. Kalen screamed, not in rage, in pain. Sunlight struck his exposed face full on. Ash-white hair, long and braided, spilled across the damp earth. His eyes, accustomed to shadow, squeezed shut uselessly as tears burst forth under the assault of raw brightness. Morghak tightened his grip. "Stay still," he growled. "Don't move." Korath approached slowly, crouching beside him with near clinical curiosity. He studied the exposed face, the braid, the dark skin marked with luminescent fissures and old scars. "Easy now, Your Royal Highness," he said with a crooked smile. "It's just a little sun, doesn't hurt anyone." Kalen screamed again as one claw dug deeper into his flesh to hold him down. Zaru let out a shrill laugh, circling the scene. "I almost pity you, Wanderer," he said. "What would the great dark lord of Ashcrawl, Kor the Unifier, say if he saw his only heir turned into a ragged, filthy vagrant who can't even stand the light?" He paused theatrically. "Absolutely nothing. Loser's still cold dead." He laughed harder, a broken sound that bounced off the trunks and came back amplified. Kalen gasped, chest shaking, eyes squeezed shut in desperation. He said nothing. He couldn't. The light, the weight, the pain all conspired to strip away his will. "Silence, idiots," Morghak roared. He tightened his hold one last time, forcing Kalen's back to arch against the ground. Then he lifted his head, looked to his companions, and adopted an exaggerated, mocking tone, heavy with shameless theatricality. "Mind your manners," he announced. "We stand before Cathar royalty." He straightened slightly, forcing Kalen's face up into the light. "All hail the Crown Prince of Valgor Akar." The words landed like a final blow. "All hail the great Khazar Gon." The obscene laughter of the plucked erupted in unison, a cruel chorus celebrating not just the capture, but the humiliation. The forest itself seemed to draw inward, as if even the land recognized the weight of the revelation. Kalen, Khazar, shut his eyes tight, and the world as he had known it since his flight finally shattered there completely.